Hi everyone, I'm Jeremy Reeves, head blender of Cornell and Deal, and today I wanted to talk to you about how to pack flake tobacco. Flake is a term that refers to a blend that has been put together using either whole leaf or large pieces of leaf rather than pre-cut tobacco. It's put together into the blend in that state, and then it is pressed and pressed under quite a bit of pressure for a period of time. For us, we do about 7 days of full pressing before the block of pressed tobacco comes out. We slice that block into bars, and then those bars get cross-cut, kind of like, imagine slicing salami. And that's essentially what flake is. So it means that the blend is sort of contained in this kind of pressed together format. The purpose for this is sort of multifaceted. There's a little bit of a historic element to this, that compressed tobacco would remain moist longer than loose cut tobacco, and so a lot of times people were traveling on long trips, their tobacco would stay basically more friendly to the palate and easier to smoke slowly if it was compressed in some way. So commonly this is actually done in plug, which plug sliced is what flake is. So that's one reason, but another real great benefit of pressing tobacco into flake is that you're basically removing all of the oxygen from the inside of that block, creating an opportunity for heat and pressure to result in some anaerobic fermentation. So flake is essentially kick-started in terms of its aging potential just by virtue of how it's processed. And a flake version of the exact same blend will age differently than the ribbon version of the precise same blend using the same components and the same ratios. The processing makes a difference in how rich and how sweet the blend comes off initially, and it will age differently because there's different levels of oxygen able to actually reach the surface area. So moving on to what to do with it. So it's in this weird compressed, maybe rectangular or sometimes kind of more broken up form. What do you do with it? Well, it's gonna burn slower if you leave some pieces kind of pressed together, and if you put the whole thing into your pipe, if you have, say, a very tall, narrow chamber, some people like to smoke this way. So basically just folding the flake and then stuffing that straight down into their pipe. I have never had really good luck with this technique, but folding stuff is definitely something a lot of people do and a lot of people really enjoy. I tend to want to rub out most of the flake. So what I do to do that is basically take off a couple of pieces that I want to leave compressed, and then the rest of it I'm just gonna tear up. Now, why is it flake if all you're gonna do is just rub it out into ribbon? Well, this gets back to the way that processing actually affects the way that the tobaccos marry together and the sort of density on the palate and the depth of flavor that you get from a flake version versus a loose ribbon. So even though I'm making it ribbon now, it's gonna have those same characteristics. So I will choose a pipe and just kind of put very, very loosely my broken up tobacco. And I like to think of this as getting to a point where the pipe looks like it needs a haircut. So at that point, I'm going to apply just the most delicate amount of pressure, really. I'm just kind of arranging this pile to better fit into the pipe. And then just going around the outside, I'm not going to compress in the middle, but just the outside, I just use the tip of my finger and flatten that out. Again, I'm not using any real pressure here. I just want the tobacco to kind of settle out evenly and give me sort of a relatively flat surface in the bottom there. Now I'm going to look to some of my sort of compressed pieces. And these, I'm going to kind of wad up and drop in just like so. Those are going to help slow down the initial smoke, and that will help me get more time with this tobacco, even though my bowl may be a little less packed than the way that some others do it. I get a lot of flavor this way, so this is the way that I personally like to pack. One of the things that I think is a important element to remember: pipe smoking is all about getting the flavor that you want out of your pipe, and so me demonstrating my method is not the method or even the best method. It's the best method that I've found to get the kind of smoke that I want, and it works really well for me. But you may find that none of this works for you and you find a different approach. That's cool. That's what this is all about. Back to my way, I kind of fill the rest of this up with tiny little pieces, like kindling, and press it down one more time, and maybe just a dusting on top. And I'll leave that loose because the next thing I'm going to do is light it. So leaving that last little bit loose gives me something that's going to sort of easily take flame. But right underneath it, remember, we've got just a little bit more of a denser dusting, and then below that some compressed pieces. So I don't want this to just, go up in a puff of smoke immediately. I want to coax this into being lit and then have that nice ember sort of build with the compressed pieces on top. And then that is what's keeping my pipe burning the rest of the way, ideally. I think a big mistake that I learned too late in my pipe smoking not to do was to rush the lighting process. It should take a little bit of time, and you may notice that I'm doing everything I can to even prevent the flame from directly touching. I'm just hovering the flame over the top of the tobacco, and I want the heat to basically cause this to ignite as best I can. Now, it is going to touch every once in a while, but I find that I get more true flavor from the get-go instead of having sort of a harsh light up and then it mellowing out. I really enjoy being able to taste every part of this in a way that's actually pleasant, and I find that slowing that process down helps with that. So once everything has kind of been toasted on top, then I'm going to go around again for the true light. And now that it's been sort of, primed, if you will, to burn, it'll take easier. Now, did you see how much faster that was the second time? Because we'd done that charring light, it all goes easier. Now, you got to use your tamper at this point. While smoking, taking slow, sort of long, gentle puffs, lightly, what I do is I take the foot of my tamper just like before when I was packing and using the tip of my finger, I angle it this way and I just go all the way around the outside of the bowl very gently and make like a little point. And then while I continue smoking, I flatten that out, again, very, very gently. Barely any pressure, just enough pressure to move the ash and little bits of loose tobacco around. And now, you can really relax and kind of begin to learn the cadence that you need to use in order to keep your pipe lit. And I really like dancing right on the edge of it being going out. I'm barely keeping this thing lit, but I get so much more flavor approaching things this way. So that's the way that I smoke flake, the way that I prepare it, the way that I put it in my pipe. But again, lots of different ways to skin that cat. I highly encourage all of you to try your own. So if you're interested to try some flake, some things from C&D that you might want to try, Bayou Morning Flake, Opening Night, Star of the East Flake. I'm smoking some Sunday Picnic, but there's a lot of flake out there. And in my experience, most flake does really well with this particular method. So see you again next time, guys. Thanks so much.